Imagine for a moment these unseen underwater mountains, just teeming with life. They act as these crucial gathering points, like oases, for creatures crossing huge distances in the ocean.
Yeah, it's quite a picture. And this book we're looking at, Ocean Earth's Last Wilderness, it really pulls back the curtain on these hidden worlds, showing just how connected everything is beneath the waves.
Absolutely. Today we're diving into what the book reveals about oceanic islands and seamounts, these incredible vital ecosystems that honestly are often overlooked. We'll unpack why they're so important and, well, what the future might hold for them.
It's a critical topic.
It really is. Oh, and before we get fully submerged, we wanted to mention Mindful Moments. That's our YouTube channel. We use AI there to analyze books, aiming to spark a bit of reflection, maybe some critical thinking on topics just like this one. Definitely check it out.
Good call.
Okay, so oceanic islands and seamounts. Let's start with the basics. What exactly are we talking about here, and why does the book argue they're so significant?
Well, basically, oceanic islands are what you might picture land rising from the deep ocean floor, not connected to continents. Think Hawaii or the Galapagos.
Got it.
Seamounts are similar, but they're underwater mountains. They don't actually break the surface.
Ah, okay. Underwater mountains.
Exactly. And their significance, it's huge. The open ocean can be, quite uniform, almost like a desert in places. But these structures, islands and seamounts, they create unique habitats, complexity.
Which attracts life.
Precisely. They attract an amazing amount of biodiversity. The book really emphasizes that for ocean wanderers, creatures traveling vast distances, these aren't just random spots, they're destinations, places deliberately sought out.
That's fascinating, and it connects to something else the book mentioned, this sort of mystery around seamounts and fishing.
Oh, yeah. Fishing fleets have known for ages that seamounts are hot spots for fish. You go there, you find fish.
But why was the question right?
Exactly. The book dives into the leading theory, which is about ocean currents. Seamounts physically get in the way of deep currents.
They disrupt the flow.
Right. And that disruption can push nutrient-rich water up from the deep sea towards the sunlit surface layers. It's called upwelling.
Upwelling, okay.
And that injection of nutrients fuels everything. Plankton blooms, then the small fish that eat plankton, then the bigger fish, right up the food chain. So these seamounts become these incredibly productive biological hotspots.
So they're like underwater buffets, basically.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
But, when you picture these underwater mountains, you might think of them as really isolated spots, little islands of life in a vast emptiness.
That was the initial thought for a long time. But the book really challenges that idea. It shows there's actually a surprising amount of connection between different seamounts.
How so?
Well, a couple of ways. First, larvae. The tiny young stages of many species, like corals or fish, can actually drift on currents from one seamount to another. So there's gene flow. They're not totally isolated populations.
Okay, drifting larvae, that makes sense.
But maybe even more compellingly, the book talks about adult animals. Many species undertake these, frankly, epic journeys across the open ocean specifically to reach certain seamounts, maybe for feeding or breeding.
So it's not just accidental drifting, it's intentional travel.
Exactly. It suggests a much more connected network than we maybe appreciated before, like stepping stones across the ocean.
Wow. The book uses the Japanese eel as a really powerful example of this interconnectedness, doesn't it?
Oh, the eel story is just incredible. It perfectly illustrates this link between seemingly disparate parts of the ocean and even fresh water.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so these eels, they start their lives way up in freshwater rivers, sometimes really far inland across East Asia. They spend years there growing.
Right.
Then they transform and undertake this massive migration over 2,000 kilometers out into the Pacific Ocean.
2,000 kilometers.
Yep. To a very specific area near seamounts west of the Mariana Islands. That's their spawning ground.
Amazing. All the way from a river to a specific set of underwater mountains.
Mm-hmm. It really underscores how connected these systems are. What happens in the rivers impacts the deep sea, and vice versa. It means, protection has to be holistic. You can't just protect the ocean part or the river part.
And the book mentions the eels are endangered now.
They are, sadly. The book points to several threats. Warming waters, potentially shifting currents or affecting spawning success, damage to the seamount habitats themselves from fishing gear, plus the pressures back in the rivers like pollution, dams blocking migration, and of course, overfishing of the eels themselves. It's a complex problem.
It really highlights the fragility. And speaking of fragile habitats on these seamounts, the book also talks about deep-sea corals. That sounds amazing.
It is. These aren't the colorful, shallow water reefs most people think of. Deep-sea corals live in cold, dark water.
So how do they survive? No sunlight for photosynthesis.
They filter food particles from the water, and while they grow much, much slower than tropical corals, some are thousands of years old, they can build up these incredibly complex, beautiful structures on the slopes of seamounts. True ancient forests of the deep.
Wow. And the book mentions a link to the surface.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Their growth isn't constant. It seems to be linked to seasonal cycles at the surface. When there's more sunlight and warmth up top, you get more plankton.
Right.
When that plankton dies, it sinks down as marine snow.
Marine snow, I've heard that term.
It's this constant rain of organic particles, and more marine snow means more food for the deep sea corals, so they can grow a bit more during those productive times. It connects the deep sea directly to the surface seasons.
That's incredible. But these ancient, slow-growing ecosystems sound incredibly vulnerable.
Extremely vulnerable, and the book really hammers this point home, especially regarding bottom trawling.
Explain what that is.
It's a type of fishing where huge, heavy nets are dragged across the seabed. It's devastating for fragile habitats like deep-sea coral gardens on seamounts.
Just scrapes everything away.
Everything. Corals, sponges, the whole structure. And often, this happens by large, distant water fishing fleets, sometimes operating in international waters where regulations are weak or poorly enforced.
And recovery.
That's the critical issue. The book states recovery takes hundreds, potentially thousands of years because these corals grow so slowly. So the damage is, for all practical purposes, permanent on human timescales.
That's sobering. Really sobering. But it's not all doom and gloom, is it? The book highlights Papahanaumokuakea in Hawaii as a success story.
Yes. Papahanaumokuakea is a fantastic example of what effective protection can achieve. It's this huge marine national monument in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, just vast, remote, and relatively untouched.
And it shows regeneration is possible.
Absolutely. Its size and its protected status make it a vital refuge. It's a critical area for migrating species, whales, seabirds, turtles, and it's the main nesting ground for most of Hawaii's green sea turtles. It's a beacon of hope, really.
And the book talks about the history of protecting it, which wasn't straightforward. It involved cultural connections, too.
That's right. The protection didn't happen overnight. It evolved from protecting some of the land areas, the small islands and atolls, to eventually designating this massive marine reserve and then the national monument.
What drove that expansion?
A big part of it, as the book explains, was the growing awareness of threats like coral bleaching and habitat damage. But crucially, there was a strong push from Native Hawaiian cultural practitioners and a real grassroots effort.
Ah, the cultural link.
Yes. These places hold deep cultural significance. The book mentions the Musli, the lace and albatross, for example. Its populations have rebounded significantly within the monument, which is not just an ecological success, but culturally important too.
That's wonderful. And the green sea turtles you mentioned, their story is also highlighted.
Definitely. It's another powerful example. These turtles migrate incredibly long distances to return to the specific beaches within Papahanaumokuakea where they hatched to lay their own nests.
An amazing instinct.
Isn't it? But historically, the book recounts they were hunted relentlessly and also caught accidentally in fishing gear by catch. They were pushed close to extinction.
So the protection was vital.
Absolutely critical. The protection offered by the monument has been fundamental to their ongoing recovery. It really shows that if you give these resilient species a safe haven, they can bounce back. It takes time, but it works.
So wrapping this part up, what's the big takeaway from the book about these oceanic islands and seamounts?
I think the main message is that these aren't just remote, barren features on the seabed. They are absolutely vital, dynamic hubs of life. They're critical for migrations. They host unique ecosystems found nowhere else, and they are incredibly vulnerable.
And protecting them isn't just about saving individual spots.
Exactly. It's about protecting the health and the interconnectedness of the entire ocean system. They play a far bigger role than their physical size might suggest.
This has been fascinating. But honestly, it feels like we've only just skimmed the surface of what's in the book and the broader issues facing our oceans.
There's always more to explore.
For sure. And if you want more in-depth discussions like this, definitely check out our other explorations here on our podcasts. We cover a range of perspectives. You know, as we learn more about these incredible hidden underwater worlds, it really makes you think, What's our responsibility here? How do we ensure these places are protected for the future, especially with all the increasing pressures from fishing, shipping, climate change?
That's the crucial question we all need to grapple with.
It is. So we encourage you, subscribe so you don't miss future discussions. Share this exploration if you found it interesting, maybe with others who are curious about our planet.
Please do.
Consider checking out the book itself. We'll put a link in the show notes. Supporting this kind of research is important. And most importantly, just keep thinking critically about our relationship with the ocean and these vital hidden ecosystems.
Well said. Keep asking questions.